Let me ask you guys a question. What is wrong with being white? I find it interesting that so many other countries have the capability, as long as they're not white countries, that they can say they want to preserve their culture. They want to preserve their artifacts. They want to preserve their uniqueness, and they're harsh on almost all immigration so that they can accomplish that. Japan, think about if somebody said they want Japan to be less Japanese. Wouldn't that be a weird thing for somebody to say? Wouldn't you think that's racist? What about China? Same thing. China openly promotes the idea of the national Chinese people, the Chinese civilization, Chinese history, Chinese language, a national rejuvenation. They want to go back to it. Xi Jinping regularly speaks about the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. Nobody calls that extremist. South Korea does the same thing. Israel openly defines itself as a Jewish state. India promotes Indian civilization, Saudi Arabia. You name it. Virtually everywhere you go on earth, it seems like that everybody's comfortable celebrating that. But then when you get to the West, it changes. And I've written a lot of these things down so I can just go over how bad it actually has become, because we're going to talk about Henry Nowak tonight, and I want to just put his murder in context in the UK for what's happening globally. Not rumors, not conspiracy theories. This is actual detailed examples of how the world has began to hate and has made it okay to hate the white man, the white people. Okay? For years, and I've got this all written down, major universities like Harvard and UNC used race-conscious admission systems that the Supreme Court ultimately ruled unconstitutional, but it took them years to rule that. So for a long time, if you scored a certain amount on your testing in order to get in, Asians had to score this high, whites had to score this high to get into Harvard, blacks had to score this high. And so there was just this upside down world that's been happening where we're not necessarily trying to destroy the white man, but just because I can't say that technically without being like, you know, a fringe internet person, but like, it's not just them. The Restaurant Revitalization Fund prioritized applicants based on race and sex before courts intervened. Law firms created fellowships that were effectively unavailable to many applicants based on the race, until lawsuits forced them to change. The Royal Air Force in the United Kingdom was found to have unlawful discrimination against white male applicants while pursuing diversity targets. Police departments, universities, corporations, media organizations, public institutions have spent millions on diversity and anti-racism programs that explicitly categorize people by race and then discriminate against them afterwards. Then we have cases like Henry Nowak. White people are 7% of the population, by the way. And you know what's interesting is if we gave to white people what was given to black people in America, Liberia, because, you know, we basically created Liberia, and then their capital city, Monrovia, was named after James Monroe because we wanted black people to be free and to have their own country. We even funded them and gave them weapons. But then a few years later, when we showed up, they had basically enslaved the population themselves. They just didn't call it slavery, but they had basically done that. But I want to just talk about this Henry Nowak case, okay? And I'll just show you something about it real quick before we jump into it. This is the guy that we're talking about right now that killed Henry Nowak. This is him a few days earlier. I want you guys to just look at this, because I'm kind of burned up about this, man. Like, I know they want us to all be separate and stuff like that, but there is some part of this where we have to look and say, okay, this is clearly wrong. Look at this.
Why you go? Do samochodu, kurwa! Do samochodu!
Look what he pulled out. Wait for it.
Come on!
There it is.
Recording him.
Look what he's got.
Come on, man.
Właśnie do samochodu, koniec!
A sword.
Właśnie you go?
So this dude was already acting like this before. Okay, he was already doing this kind of thing. And then he stabs Henry at a later point. Okay? I want you guys to see, man, because this is important for everybody to see what's really going on in the world today.
What's happened to you?
This is
Right?
after Henry was stabbed. He tells them, I've been stabbed.
Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
Don't think you have, mate.
And?
Cuffed him while he was stabbed, bleeding out. Must have been a collapsed lung or something like that. The police show up because they get a call that somebody was being racist to a person of color. And their first instinct is to slap handcuffs on the guy that's laying on the ground saying, I've been stabbed. They don't even put the other guy in handcuffs. And they argue with the dude dying on the ground. No, I don't think you have, mate. Don't think you have. Listen to this.
I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
This is like punches has happened to us. You've been walking, you parked literally.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so
Where
let's
was
just
it you
check
think you've
him.
been stabbed? In the
Like the worst check ever. Checks like his belly button. Nope, you're good. And there's a lot of people that are angry right now because they're acting like, now you know how it felt for us with George Floyd. Bro, George Floyd was high on enough fentanyl to kill a person. He asked the police officer to lay him on the ground. No, many people don't know this. George Floyd asked the police officer to put him on the ground before he ever said he couldn't breathe. He was saying, I can't breathe before he was ever put on the ground. George Floyd was doing an active crime. He tried to do a counterfeit $20 bill. So there was a reason for the police to at least apprehend the man. And he wasn't calling for his mama, regardless of how his girlfriend's name was Mama. That's what he called her. Okay. His girlfriend was right there. He was trying to talk to his girlfriend. So I'm not saying that like everything the police did in the George Floyd situation was totally above board and it was totally legit. If somebody says they can't breathe and they're obviously not a threat and they don't have weapons and they're handcuffed, maybe you can let them sit up. Okay. Come on. Right. But at the same time, we have to put the dude in context. Okay. The same dude who held a pistol at a pregnant woman's stomach. Okay. Same dude. That was George Floyd, all right? And cities burned because of it. And news agencies talked about it nonstop until it brought the country to its knees. And they hailed this man as a hero. He had meth and fentanyl in his system, enough fentanyl to kill a man. And the practice that the police officer was using was legal in Minnesota. The police department that trained him, the Minneapolis Police Department or whatever it was, when you go back and look at all the information about this, they tried to hide it, but it was part of their protocol to do those things. Now, maybe you can argue with that. But this dude who killed Henry Nowak didn't even get handcuffs. They brought him to the police station and let him walk around the police station and pick which meal he wanted to eat, bro. Well, people are getting sick of it. And by people, I mean white people.
Racist police!
Are you right, mate? The police are getting outnumbered now. A little bit of police brutality. A little bit of police brutality here now.
It's not going to go well, man. It's not going to go well. It's not going to go well. You guys, I'm just saying, you're pissing certain people off, and those certain people take over whole countries when they're mad. So why are they calling the police racist? Equity Act of 2010 allows positive action to address underrepresentation. Forces have used this for ethnic minorities. Examples: West Yorkshire police temporarily opened applications earlier for underrepresented groups, pausing or delaying white applicants. Mayor denied discrimination, claiming it was just trying to widen the pool. Okay? the two-tier response for them. Post-2024 riots and protests, widespread claims amplified by Southport and Henry Nowak case that the police acted faster or more forcefully against white anti-immigration protesters than against BLM, pro-Palestine marches, or any other kind of minority unrest. Body cam footage in some cases showed delayed aid or handcuffing white victims first. The grooming gangs case, that was a huge one. Elon Musk has talked about this. This multiple inquiries found police and social services reluctant to pursue Pakistani heritage networks abusing mostly white girls due to political correctness, fear of racism labels, and community tensions. This is Wikipedia saying this, okay? This is Wikipedia saying this. At which point do you start to say, yeah, after the 30th white girl got grabbed and, graped, we got a problem. We got a problem, dude. And I always try to minimize all this, to shrink it down so that you can understand how big of a deal it really is. If you had 1,000 people in a village that you grew up in your whole life, and then all of a sudden 200 of them turned into a completely different race that had nothing similar with your culture, and they weren't willing to become similar to your culture, it would immediately change everything about that 1,000 people village. Immediately it would change it. It becomes a low trust society. You don't leave stuff out. You don't leave your lawnmower out. You don't leave your windows and doors open anymore because you just don't know about what's going on. And then when these people have rights that you don't have, like the rights to have ancestral swords when you can't even have a sword in that country, right? That's half the problem half the benefit of the Second Amendment is that it's an equal playing field. You're not going to take advantage of the citizens, which is why I'm so mad at the Virginia case right now, because I live in Virginia and I'm seeing all these stupid new rules that they're putting in. So my kids aren't going to be able to purchase firearms to protect themselves the way that I was able to. So now I have to buy so many so I can hand them down and it be legal, bro. People are getting sick of this, man. And and rightly so, they're getting sick of it, dude. And I don't know. I'm weary. I'm weary of watching it, and feeling like, man, Trump was supposed to come in and do a lot of things for the country. Mass deportation was one of the things that I was hoping for in the United States that was campaigned on. And he's slower on deportations than even Obama was. And I don't know, man. You guys are who I talk to about this stuff because I make content on Instagram and TikTok a little bit. TikTok bans like half the crap I post, so I just don't post there that often. But Instagram and here is pretty much where I talk about all this stuff, and a little bit on Facebook. So it's like, at which point do you start to go, hey, 7% of the population of the planet is kind of under attack. They don't want to replace India's culture. They don't want to replace Japan's culture and China's culture. They want to replace your culture. Which culture specifically is that? The one that ended slavery? Because we did that. The UK did that. In fact, when you look at history, if you guys remember that movie Woman King, where it was supposed to be about the African tribe of mostly women who were super badass and all that, the reason that they were, which is just such a perversion from Hollywood, the reason that there was women there is because they had sold all their men into slavery. The tribe itself had sold their own men into slavery, and they had been given guns at some points, right, to go capture other tribes and to sell them into slavery. And that's what they did. That's what they did. You think white people walked around in Africa and just grabbed a couple and were like, hey, we're taking these back? Bro, black people brought them to the shores. Liberia right now. In multiple countries in Africa, there's still slavery. More slavery, I think, than was ever existed in the times that everybody's mad about. Do y'all know that? Do you know this? Do you know the Barbary pirates before even the Indian Atlantic slave trade or whatever it was called? When they brought the slaves from Africa to the United States or to the Western Hemisphere, you can say, 90% of the slaves went to South America. Did you even know that? We got 10%. I'm just saying, the Barbary pirates captured more white people than the other slave trades ever captured black people. Did you know that? Do you know where the term slave comes from? Slavic, white folks. So, anyways, I'm just, I think it's worth saying that people should pay attention to what's happening around them. I don't know, at least I'm not supposed to say that I know why white people are being targeted. I think it's because they realize that they're the biggest threat to who wants to run the world, the people that are like trying to make it so it's like, look, if you import a bunch of people that are totally okay being slaves and accepting slave labor, then the standard that's set by white people and by American culture, it's not just white people, it's American culture. But the standard that we've set with the Bill of Rights and the freedoms and stuff that we have, it's kind of like a shining beacon of this is the way humans are supposed to be treated, or at least the best way so far that the world's created. And when you get rid of that culture and you just import slave class, nonstop slave class, and they're all low IQ and I'm not talking about like the ones that actually go through the vetting process and want to assimilate to the culture that's freed the world the most. I'm not talking about what's happened over the last 120 years where our military has been hijacked by other elites to basically destroy the planet in other kinds of ways. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the original American ideals that made the country good and what still makes people come here and go, oh, at least I get a fair shot in court. But that's even going away because truthfully, it's becoming whoever has the most money. Whoever has the most money wins in court. The little guy can't really win unless he gets some pro bono good attorney who's willing to do it for free. But truthfully, you could be totally in the right and some big corporation could decide to kick you off your land or something and you can't really fight it. You can't do anything about that really because you don't have $50 million to spend on legal fees and they do and they'll win. And so anyways, I know I say anyways a lot. I just, it's been a super busy, hectic week for me, man. We've got a lot of nonstop problems going on here at the house. Here at the property, my wife's still recovering from falling off a horse, dude. She couldn't walk for 4 months. For 4 freaking months, she couldn't walk. And that's just been hard, dude. A lot of things have been just hard, and so I'm just a little not as funny and a little more fussy than usual. So. Enjoy it while it lasts. Fussy Ross. I just, I like white people. There, I said it. I like people that are actually American in culture. It's one of the best cultures in the world. It really is. Now, once again, I do believe that our military was hijacked for the last 100 years or so to basically do whatever the elites wanted us to do, including restructure multiple governments around the world that didn't want to be under the thumb of central bank systems. And so we just toppled their government so we could get control of their bank system. And it wasn't we even getting control of it. We don't see any benefit from that. Somebody else does. Well, who's the somebody else? I'll let you figure it out. Because it's hard to pin down, truthfully. It's hard to pin down who specifically is the group that's benefiting. But one thing is for sure, it does seem to be an attack on Western civilization that was built on Christian values. So that's just tough to see. But people are starting to get sick of it. People are starting to get sick of the everyman getting taken advantage of. And this may or may not be a great example of that, but I want you guys to just see this video because it's just a great example of like you forgot how important like regular people were. And I don't think this is AI, but whatever it is, it's funny. Here you go.
Meth head. Nigga, I'm a fucking electrician. I'm not there.
I guess they called him a meth head, and he said, nah, I'm an electrician. And then he says,
shut this whole motherfucker down.
I can go shut this whole thing down.
Listen, they're busting their ass. They trying. Get out.
They didn't believe him.
I got
Who needs the common man? And then, whoop. Oh, he knew what he was talking about. Oh, he is an electrician. He understands how the world works. He helped build the world. That's the thing that people don't understand about the average man, about the everyman. That's the thing they've taken advantage of for so long is that like all these lights, all this infrastructure, all these bridges and stuff were built by people strong people that know things about how the world really works. And now we have a bunch of people that know how to type, me included. I know some things about hunting, about fishing, about construction, about, growing things and stuff like that. I'm a decent man, right? But that is just shoved to the sides now with the feminization of culture. And it's like, we don't really need you. Because they basically substitute the masculine forces that they need, these feminists do, and they basically outsource it to police officers. They just call the police when they need a man, because they still need a man, but they just don't have one. So they just basically outsource it to somebody else who's a man. And I think people are just starting to get sick of certain things happening, and you know what? It's justified. It's justified in my opinion. Anyways, hope you guys are doing good. I don't have a super long video for you guys today. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. And hope you guys are doing great. Love you all. Hang in there. Keep fighting. And I mean non-violently. And we'll see you next time.